It is a good Monday morning, everyone. We are so excited to be live with someone who gets to talk to high school students every single day, every single week, and change lives. Dean Sikes, welcome. I'm so excited to get to talk to you.
All right, Beth, thank you. So looking forward to this time together.
So, you have been in public schools across the nation for 34 years.
Yeah, this upcoming January 1st will be 34 years of doing what we've done. We've spoken at over 4,300 events across America and 7 other countries. And even though we've been doing what we've been doing for almost 3.5 decades, I feel like really in some measures we're just getting started.
And your message is simple. You share your story, but you remind these high school kids that their life matters.
Yep.
And why has that become so important to you? I know there was a time in your life when you thought your life didn't matter, and that was a big turning point for you, right?
Right. Yeah, it's what I tell and share with students is that oftentimes what we overcome becomes our platform.
Yes.
And so for a long time, I didn't think that my life mattered. So the irony of all ironies is the entirety of my life now is you matter. And it's based out of 16 words that comprise Job 33:4 in the Bible. And it says, the Spirit of God made you, and the breath of the Almighty gives you life. So my very simple people, they ask me every day, you don't know me, you don't know my story, you have no idea what I've done in my life. How can you have such unimaginable courageousness to say that we matter? And that's simple. 2 words, You're breathing. It's just that simple. You were created on purpose, with purpose, and for purpose. And when God created you, he did so with intentionality in that process. And you're here for a very specific calling.
So when you're in front of all these teenagers and you're in high school, so you've got the vulnerable kids, and I think I remember reading in your bio that in 2022, it was deemed a devastating season for teenagers and depression and anxiety. So you go into those arenas filled with kids and teachers knowing what is in front of you. So I know you've been doing this for 34 years, but this is what surprises you most often when you encounter these kids in a group and one-on-one?
Hopelessness.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I mean, the Bible teaches us that without a vision, people perish. So you could invert that and think, well, what could you do with a vision? And not just a vision, but the vision that God has for your life. And so many students these days, and I don't want to paint a picture that there's not a great remnant of teenagers out there. There are a lot of teenagers who have a tremendous vision for their life. They've got lots of hope. And hope's job, in my view, hope gives faith something to hang on to. And so when we are moving forward through all these assemblies and talking with all these students, what happens is they hear truth. And the cool thing about truth is always true. It never changes. And so when they hear the truth, and I believe inborn into every person is a desire to worship God and to encounter truth at the God level. And so when they hear the truth that you were created on purpose, with purpose, for purpose, your life matters, don't quit, don't give up, suicide's not the answer. Their spirit, their inner man bears witness with what they are hearing, and that draws them into a conversation where they come down to wherever we are that they want to talk. And here's what I share with parents. I minister and speak a lot in churches on the weekends, and it's not that teenagers today necessarily want to talk or want to enter into an engaging conversation. They desperately, however, need to be heard.
Right.
If a teenager does not feel seen or heard, they begin to buy the lie that their life doesn't matter, and that leads them on a journey that becomes a very dark place very quickly.
Yeah. So what do parents ask you about what they should be doing differently? Because it is a different time. These last 5 years, 10 years, I know you talk a lot about the social media and the effect of, the friends and things like that. What do you tell parents about the reality of phones and social media and things like that? Because I mean, it feels like an uphill battle, doesn't it, to many of them?
Yeah, on many levels it is. But one of the things when parents say to me, "Well, I don't know what to say to my kid." Well, let's start with asking questions. How was your day? Let's start with turn your phones off. I mean, years and years ago, my wife and I have three kiddos, and they're all adults now. But years ago, I knew that we needed to make some changes. When I was downstairs in our family room, and our son was upstairs in his bedroom, and he and I were texting one another. At that moment, I knew, okay, this is silly. And so Lori, my wife, came up with this very, basic deal that we did on every night that we were together as a family. What was your high today? What was your low today?
Mm-hmm.
And what made it so? And as a result, what happened was our kids began to better understand the art of engaging in conversation, not just, how was your day? Fine.
Yeah.
What made it fine? And so I tell and encourage parents, turn the phones off. I mean, we all live by them. They're strapped to us 24/7. But at the end of the day, if you want to really invest time in your young person's life, and here's such a reality check. Teenagers desperately want time with their family.
Yeah.
And I can hear parents going, no, that mine doesn't. They do. They're searching. And if they don't find it in your home, they'll find it in someone else's home.
Right.
If they don't find it in church, I go to a lot of churches where they've gone, well, we don't like it loud. Well, get over it. I mean, God's not going to call you back with a ukulele. He's going to call you back with a trumpet blast. You'll hear from East LA to South China. Mm-hmm. If we don't give these teenagers this generation is a very, very visual generation, that they hear with their eyes. They're constantly, the very first convention I ever did in 1993, there were 600 students there. I asked them, how many of you have a cell phone? 3, not 300, 3 raised their hand. Simple math tells us 597 did not. Today, and I do an assembly with 1,500 kids, will say 99+% will have their phones with them. And this is what I share with kids and parents, because here's the reality, Beth. Unhealthy teenagers become unhealthy adults until they get healed, emotionally, physically, spiritually, however. In the last 26 months, our ministry has had 172 million views of our videos on social media.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Very grateful for that. But notice I didn't say we've had 172 million likes.
Right.
And here's what I tell teenagers. If you're still counting your likes, you have no idea just how much you're loved. And so social media is a big deal. It was created by God. The Bible's very clear. All things were created by God and for God. But like the enemy always does, he twists what God creates and he turns it. And so it was created to be this unifying connectivity globally. It's become the most isolating force that the planet has ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah. So you talked about healing. I had trauma as a child. You had trauma as a child. I did pursue healing because I knew I needed it. I didn't really know for what. I just knew I was carrying some baggage. How do you help kids identify, and families identify, a path of healing? Because I think so often people don't know what to do with whatever it is they're trying to deal with, so they just kind of cover it up.
Yeah. Here's the takeaway that I share with students. If you and I do not deal with our emotions will deal with us.
Yeah.
They do not magically disappear.
No.
And trauma, in my view, is what happened to a person that should have never happened. But conversely, trauma is what did not happen that should have happened. I see a lot of teenagers who are living traumatic lives because they did not ever really have a relationship with their dad or their father. And there's a big difference there. And this is what I, again, share with students. Dads give you what you want, but fathers give you what you need. And so that they grow up not having that in their life. And by default, they begin to look for a father figure, and they're wounded because they're missing something. For me, I was sexually abused at 15 and made a vow, I'll never tell anybody what happened. And for 22 years, I didn't. But 22 years later, married and had 2 kids at that point, walked down aisle 21 at Home Depot on a Wednesday night, not bothering anybody, turned right and walked right into the person who had sexually abused me, and my life unraveled.
I bet.
I mean,
I
totally
read
unraveled.
that and I'm like, you have got to be kidding me.
Oh, yeah. It was national, worldwide television 4 days a week. I couldn't get off my couch. I could not function. And I remember I went home that night and Lori said to me, she said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Not right now."
Yeah.
And later that night I said, "I'm going to tell you something. I've never had the guts to tell anybody." And I told her, and she says, "We've got to get you some help." She said, "Everything makes sense now." I said, "I don't need help. I'm fine." Pride. She goes, "You're not fine." And I went to a counselor, and he said, he was a Christian counselor. He says, "I know what you do. I know about your ministry. I don't want to talk about the ministry. I don't want to talk about your results. I don't care about how many books you've written. I care about you." And that was new to me. I was like, okay, so what would this look like? He said, "It's a conversation. We'll begin today." That conversation, Beth, lasted 11 years.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the way, I was asked this question: Will you forgive the person who hurt you? And I said, "No." Strong Christian answer.
Yeah.
No.
No.
They said, why? I said, it's not fair. I didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
And the next question changed my life. Was the cross fair? I was like, oh, why'd you have to go there?
Yeah.
And it took me some time, but I did forgive. And I would love to tell you, and I'd love to tell your audience that, I saw angels doing high five in my office. None of that happened. I didn't feel any different. But in fact, I felt worse because I felt like, what did I just do? Right. But faith isn't about feelings. Faith is about obedience. Mm-hmm. About 3 months later, I woke up one day. I was totally, completely free. Yeah. I tell teenagers, the person who sexually abused me at 15 could walk into this arena, walk down to the front row, sit on the front row right in front of me. It wouldn't faze me in the least. Because the word is very clear. He whom the Son sets free is free indeed.
So let's talk about that, because a lot of these kids are carrying around secrets, and that's a big one, but there are others. Yeah. So how do you get them to convince them that they need to speak to someone and bear that burden? Because if you're carrying it all by yourself, what do they say? You're only as sick as your secrets. Mm-hmm. How do you get them to decide, okay, I'm not going to cover this up anymore? Yeah,
great question. I share with students that at the end of every one of our assemblies, I ask 3 questions, no matter what school I'm in. Is there someone you need to forgive? Do you feel like you've been rejected? Is suicide a real option? Okay. Every day that I do that, hundreds of hands go up, all 3 questions. And people say to me, well, why do you do that? Because I believe that when you recognize something, you begin to tear away the secrecy of it. You begin to put light on a dark area. And I believe that really when we recognize this and we start to do something about it, we're already halfway there to winning. Right. 50% of the battle,
telling one person almost solves it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Because the stigma of the shame that I dealt with, the pain that came from just the emotional pain, all of that, I paint that picture in these assemblies, and students, they don't even realize it. They're sitting there nodding at me like, you're telling my story. Yeah. And so when it's over and they've raised their hands, they come down, they want to talk. Some are shy, some are embarrassed, some are whatever. But the vast majority again, they don't want to talk, they want to be heard. Right. And so then we, of course, point them towards whoever the counselor is at the school, your youth pastor at church, your pastor at church, your mom, your dad, a teacher here. We never leave them by themselves. We always put them with an adult before I leave the school, because for all the obvious reasons, that's important.
Yeah. So what do you wish, speaking of churches, what do you wish churches could do differently to not, to create an environment where kids know they can go speak to someone? I know there's some churches that do this really, really well, and I know there's some that don't. What's the magic environment there?
To recognize the fact and the truth that bad things happen to good people. Yeah. And just because a person is going through a really heavy thing does not mean they're a bad person. Even if someone does something and they're responsible for it and they're paying the price for it, and Jesus came to heal the sick. Mm-hmm. He didn't come for those who were well. He came for those who were sick. Mm-hmm. Jesus has a way of meeting us where we are every day. Mm-hmm. And he invites us on this journey where we can just go to a place where there is true healing. Mm-hmm. There's a verse in Proverbs, I have to find it. It's in the Living Translation. It says, open communication permits progress. When we openly communicate, when we let our guards down and we invite someone into that conversation that no one knows about, and the tragedy for so many students is they feel like, well, if I say something, I'm going to get in trouble. I mean, every day in America, 5,600 teenagers attempt suicide. Wow. Pre-COVID, it was 5,200. Let me put that in a visual that people can really grasp. In an arena that seats 12,000 people, that arena would fill up every 2.5 days with teenagers who in the previous 60 hours bought the lie. Yeah. So to say that there is an epidemic would be a mild understatement. It's everywhere. Yeah. And what we're trying to get students to see is, what does the enemy know about your life, the calling on your life, the purpose for your life, the destiny, if you will, for your life? What does he know that you haven't yet clued into, that he's trying his best to accomplish the first part of John 10:10, to steal, kill, and destroy your life? Yeah. Because when you get that revelation, look out.
And on that, I'll often say Christianity is not confusing, but Christians are so confusing. Because if you weren't raised, not meaning to be, but people use these big words that people don't, kids, especially if they weren't raised in the Bible, they weren't raised in the church, they don't know the story of, Noah's Ark and things like that. I think one of the things that you've mastered in going into these schools is simplifying by sharing your story. You don't preach at them, you
No.
talk to them. So how important is that?
Oh, it's critical. The very first thing I say to any student that like in any gathered assembly, first thing out of my mouth is, thank you for giving me a few minutes out of your life.
Yeah.
I'm not here to talk to you. I'm going to talk with you. I'm not going to talk with you as teenagers and kids. I'm going to talk with you as young adults who have the capacity to make choices. And instantly I have them, because I'm not reading a speech. I'm not in a suit and tie standing behind a podium. I'm dressed kind of like I'm dressed today. I'm walking, I'm talking. It's very interactive. It's engaging. And when I tell them that I was sitting in my office one day at 21 years old, I had whatever society says makes you successful, and I was miserable.
Yeah.
And I had prayed a prayer 2 weeks earlier. And the prayer was, God, if you're real, by the way, I don't think you are, but if you are, prove it. And I'd been in church every time the doors were open, I was in church.
Yeah.
And I would not have known God from Adam, because it was religion, not relationship.
Right.
And a lot of churches have conquered religion. They've not yet touched what relationship is supposed to be. But 2 weeks later, sitting in my office, Beth, I was dialing this phone, and people would go, did that really happen? It really happened. I heard the audible voice of God. And he said, call mom. And I did. And when I did so, my mother was attempting suicide.
Oh my goodness.
I could hear the life leaving her body. I drove to their home. I said a very simple prayer that would not have won any theological award. It was as loud as I could scream, help. I can't save her, but you can.
Yeah.
Get to their home from the outside in. It looked like anyone else's home, probably just safe, secure, but from the inside out, my mom was dying. I have spoken literally with millions of people, it's multiplied millions. And from the outside in, most of them have it all together, but from the inside out, they're in their own private wars. That day I got her to a hospital, and as we're driving, she says, Dean, I can't be dying. I said, Mom, you're not going to die, but you're going to have to choose to live. And the most important word in that sentence is not live, it's choose, because the word teaches us, choose you this day. Mm-hmm. Get her to a hospital. A doctor threw me against the wall, rushed her to the emergency room. 45 minutes later, this ER doc walked over to my dad with the most bewildered look on his face. This is a doctor who had 4 years of college, 4 years of med school, 2 years of residency, and years of practicing medicine. And he said to my dad, there's no medical reason to tell you what I'm getting ready to tell you. It's a, quote, miracle of God. Your wife is fine. You can go see her.
Wow.
Beth, I heard miracle of God. I looked straight up and I went, you got to be kidding me. You're real?
Because 2 weeks before you said, I don't believe you're real.
No, because why would so many bad things happen to me? I wasn't a poster child for what was great, but I wasn't a bad kid.
Right.
I was emotionally abandoned at 4.5 years old, sexually abused at 15, failed PE at 17. Lying was my drug of choice, 18, 19, and 20. 21, I was making money. We had 2 airplanes, a condo in Florida, had all the stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was so miserable.
So let me ask you about your mom real quick, because we've talked about teenagers. But what was it your mom needed to choose to do? Because we have a lot of adults that feel the same way a lot of these teenagers do.
Sure.
What happened to your mom to make her get to that point?
Yeah, I think the hopelessness was on steroids, basically. I mean, it was the second greatest commandment says what? To love your neighbor as yourself.
Right. We forget to love ourselves, don't we?
Well, if we don't love ourselves, we can't love someone else. You can't give me what you don't have. I can't teach what I've not been taught.
Yeah.
So if you don't love yourself, how can you think you can conceivably love someone else? But yet God, according to the word, is love. Mm-hmm. God doesn't just love us, he is love. This is what I try to get adults to understand. You and I would be incapable of receiving love or giving love were we not created in the image of love, God.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so when adults live their life and they maybe they go through trauma like I did, and they don't deal with it, or they just bury it thinking it's just going to magically disappear, or life gets so busy they just go, well, I can't deal. I don't have time to deal with it. Well, you don't have time not to deal with it.
Right.
Because what happens? Healthy attracts healthy. Unhealthy attracts unhealthy. Two become one flesh, and what happens? They recreate who they are.
Yeah, that's unfortunately so obvious oftentimes.
Yeah.
So you talk a lot about purpose. If you're born and you're made for a purpose, and I'm sure when you tell adults and kids alike, they're like, yeah, but how do I know what my purpose is? And you talked about hearing the audible voice of God. Most people have never heard the audible voice of God. If you have questions about your life and you want to ask God those questions, How do you best do that and then really leave that between you and the one who made you?
Yeah, that's great questions. For me, I talk with God.
Yeah.
I don't approach God from the standpoint of, oh, he's mad at me, he's going to kill me.
Right.
I don't fear God from the standpoint of he's a bad, mean God. I will fear God from a worship standpoint because we're fearfully and wonderfully made.
Mm-hmm.
But it's literally just it's talking with him and then taking the time to shut my mouth and listen. Because even though I'm 59 years old, I've only heard his audible voice thus far one time. It's not because I was so spiritual, it's because I was so non-spiritual.
Yeah.
God knew he had to speak to me. Otherwise, the doctors told us we would have buried my mom. She would have died. It was that close. So people say to me, well, how can I hear God today? Open your Bible. Jesus is, the word is Jesus on paper,
Mm-hmm.
right? The word became flesh and dwelt among us. So when we read the Bible, we go, well, where do we start? Well, I tell people all the time, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a lot of reading. Okay, read words in red. Start there. Just read the
Yeah.
words in red, those four chapters, those four, books of the Bible. Because what you learn in the Gospels, I believe, is who the character of Jesus really is. What moved him? What transformed him? What caused him to be angry? What caused him to have such compassion for people? And when we literally get into the Word gets into us.
Mm-hmm.
So the more we get into it, the more it gets into us. And what's in our heart in abundance, according to the Word, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth will speak. So then
Mm-hmm.
you begin to have these conversations. Music. Music was built by God. I used to manage a Grammy Award-winning Christian artist, so I have a pretty good history of seeing what music can do as it ushers us in. But here's the great thing: the Bible when we praise God, we enter His presence.
Mm-hmm.
But I've learned that when we worship God, He enters our presence.
That's
So
good.
if we will worship God, not coming to God going, "Will you give me this? Will you give me that? Hey, by the way, I need this. I need that. By the way, I don't feel good over here." So God already knows all that. What would happen if we just came to God unabashedly and just said, "Today, I just want to invest time in you. Let's go for a walk."
Yeah.
People think, they go, "You really do this?" Yes, I really do this.
Yeah.
And many, many others really do this because it's relationship. I
Mm-hmm.
read the word. I don't read the word because I feel like I have to. I want to.
But there can be moments of discipline when you can choose, okay, what am I going to do with these
Yes.
first 30 minutes of my day? It
Yep.
may be a lot easier to just thumb through the news or Facebook,
It is
but you
easier.
can choose to not do that. And I have a pastor who said years ago, he said, just read the word, let it do its job. Because I think so often we're like, well, I just don't get that. I just don't understand it. Well, okay, no, forget it. What's the risk in trying to read it and seeing if something happens? Isn't
Yep.
that simple enough?
Oh, when when I read through the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, I got to Leviticus and I was like, "You've got to be
Yeah.
kidding me! What is this and why?" And it wasn't.
Cubits.
It was all about. So you just said it was the obedience factor. Would I be obedient to just read it? Whether I don't understand Leviticus.
Right.
I don't know what practical application, and I'm sure there are Bible scholars who are watching. They could probably give me an entire indoctrination into why Leviticus is important today. I just don't see it. But I knew that somewhere in that, my reading it, it would open up something at some point. For example, like when my mom got out of the hospital, she made a choice. She went back to school, became a counselor herself, and helped people for the next 30 years come through what she came through.
Wow.
But 6 months before she passed away, she called me one Saturday morning. She says, "I need to tell you, I emotionally abandoned you at 4.5. You and I do not have a relationship. We never have. Stop acting like we do." Hung up. That's called rejection. Well, on the other side of rejection is a word called accepted, and we're all accepted in the beloved.
Yeah.
And I spent the next 6 months fixing that relationship with my mom because I had a part to
Yeah.
play in it. Wasn't all
Yeah.
She wasn't all bad. I wasn't all good.
Yeah.
I was the only person that could make her laugh. And I'm telling this because I'm led to today to let you know that someone probably watching today has got a similar situation and they don't think there's any hope. Watch what love does.
Yeah.
It never fails.
It never fails, and it covers a multitude of sins. So, I'm a grandparent. I have grown kids, and I want to do everything I can in this broken world to have influence. And I think a lot of people feel like it's a losing battle. We're losing the war. What are we going to do? what do you do to encourage the adults in these kids' lives to see the potential and break through and say, I'm not giving up, I'm not giving in. This is God we're talking about here. Because I think a lot of people wave the flag and they're like, okay, they're 16. What am I supposed to do now?
Yeah, I think the answer to that is very simple. Just keep showing up.
Yeah.
Just keep being involved. Don't quit. Don't give up. I mean, there's not a person on the planet who asked to be born.
Yeah.
Never has been, never will be. And so we have these responsibilities. And what I had to do as a father was figure out what can I do to be involved in my kids' lives where I'm not in, they're not going with me to hear me speak somewhere. They don't need that.
Right.
What can I do? Okay, well, my
Mm-hmm.
son played soccer. Oh, okay. Well, guess what? I'm going to be at those. I'm going to show up at practices.
Mm-hmm.
One of my daughters rode horses. Guess what? I'm gonna go with you to the horse farm. We're gonna talk all the way there, and on the way back, we're gonna tell you how great you did.
Mm-hmm.
One of my daughters did gymnastics. I mean, did I want to go sit through watching all these kids tumble and do? No, but it didn't matter because she was there. And so I think our just showing up is a big deal in today's world. There's a I would say without any really hesitation or contradiction that today's teenagers spell love from their family time.
Yeah,
Time.
they do. Mm-hmm.
That's what they want. They tell me these things. If my mom or dad would just spend 10 minutes a week, not a day, a week with me.
Without a phone.
Without a phone.
That's
Without
the
a phone.
key.
Oh,
because if you might as well not be there if
because you're not
looking
there.
At your phone. You're right.
That's it. And we have a rule in our family: be where you are with who you are.
Yeah.
Respect the person you're with.
I used to say, love the one you're with. A boss used to say, love the one you're with. In other words, whoever is across from you, nothing else matters at that moment. And especially if it's a spouse, if it's a child, it could be a complete stranger.
Yeah. Because everyone needs someone.
Everyone needs someone. So in this whole church movement and revival movement, and what do you encourage people to look at? Because there's good things happening. And I think we turn on the news and we're like, oh my gosh, we're the light of the world, right?
Yeah.
We're supposed to go out in the world every day and bring hope and bring heaven and bring all the good things. How do you encourage people to remember we've got a job to do, we got to keep doing it, and we got to do it well?
Yeah, I say just basically that. When I minister in churches on Sundays, one of the things I enjoy saying the most is when the service is getting ready to be over is, as you leave your church parking lot this day, I would encourage you to have this massive sign built, and it would say this on it: your mission field begins now.
Yeah.
As you're leaving the church, not coming into the church.
Amen.
Because I remember recently I was my wife, and I love to spend time with her. And so she had asked, when she very rarely will ask me to go to the grocery store, and there are good reasons for that because I just don't do well there. My 4 food groups are Oreos and, the basics. Barbecue.
Ice cream, come
on.
You
get it. You get it. So she was going to the store, and I said, I'll take you. She said, I don't need you to go, sweetheart. I said, no, I'm going to drive you. So we drive over there together. It was raining, and we're getting ready to rain. And I said, hop out. I'll go park on each side. So she said, okay. So I parked, and I'm walking across the parking lot, and I have this leading to, there's a grocery cart in the middle of the, not very spiritual, take that inside.
Yeah.
Not my cart, but okay. So I just do it. Now, little did I know, but there was somebody watching. And this lady walked up to me, she goes, are you who I think you are? I go, well, I don't know who you think I am, but I'm Dean. She goes, I watch you on television. I go, well, thanks. I appreciate it. She said, is that your grocery cart? I said, no, ma'am, it's not. She goes, well, why are you taking it in? I said, well, to be totally transparent, I really feel like the Lord just prompted my heart to do it because there's a young man in there who's been drenched from raining and he's tired, and I did it. And she looked at me, she went, you're real. And I went, yeah. And my point is, we all can be real.
Yeah.
We can all be authentic. We can all engage in this journey we know as life to the degree that we're able to say, everybody does need somebody. Everywhere you look, you'll find somebody who's hurting. Yeah. And maybe your answer to their pain is a few minutes of time. Yeah. To just go. I mean, when I was really not well emotionally, and in ministry, full-time ministry, by the way, I would ask people, hey, how you doing? And I would think to myself, going, oh, Lord, they're going to answer this. I'm going to sit there and listen to this.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people, when they go, how are you doing? Do you really want to know? Mm-hmm. And now when I ask that question, oh, I'll sit with you. I genuinely want to know, because I realized in ministry, in life, we're in the people business.
Yeah, we are.
Right? Everyone watching today is in the people business, and everyone watching or listening today is assigned to somebody. For me,
Yeah.
I'm assigned to teenagers.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Dean, we could go on forever, but we're going to stop because I know people will come back and watch this. And um, I hope that his book is called You Matter, and it's at deansykes.org
No,
and
DeanSikes.net.
.net. I knew I had that there. So, and you've got how many books? 32?
Yeah, this is my 33rd one. The You Matter book is the legacy book of our ministry, and people, if they're interested in looking at it, they can get it on Amazon, or they can go to DeanSikes.net.
And you have
Or
a
just
lot of resources there.
we
You
do.
got a lot of videos. You've got TV shows. I mean, if anybody has any questions about any of these things, you can go to his site and just sit there and watch stuff, and it's really, really good.
Well, thank you for saying so. We love what we get to do in life.
Well, Dean, thank you so much. We're going to come back and do this again. I appreciate you pointing out to people that they matter, because I think that simple message can change someone's entire trajectory of their life. And I'm glad you're out there doing it, and I encourage others to do the same thing. So everybody
Yeah.
have a great day. Dean, thank you so much.
Thanks, Beth.